Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Infinite Wisdom interview series. Today, we have got an amazing guest for you. He's a trusted global team and leadership advisor with global organizations. Philip Merry is owner and founder of Singapore's Philip Merry Consulting Group. He brings 40 years of training and consulting experience to 63 countries. Honestly, I want to be him like when I grow up. That's all I want to do. So Philip is a thought leader in the application of synchronicity to organizations and a specialist in cultural team coaching. He is certified in HeartMath, NeuroChangeSolutions, and an Appreciative Inquiry facilitator. As the organizer of Asia's first happiness conference, his first book, Simply Happy, he outlines the science of happiness and chronicles the search for Singapore's happiest people. He has been a leadership and team consultant with the United Nations for 17 years, and he has worked in a full-time team and leadership development roles with Reuters Asia, Sri Lankan Youth Ministry, Roffey Park Institute, and many, many, many more. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. Philip has a PhD in synchronicity and leadership from Tilburg University. In his book, The 9 Keys of Synchronicity, he takes you on a wonderful tour de force on intellectual and spirituality in the appreciation of the amazing powers of synchronicity, plus the life-changing and leadership enlivening potentials of opening our hearts and minds to a deeper way of being in the world. Philip, thank you so very, very much for being on the show today. We are just honored to death.
Totally awesome. And, we both got exposed to Philip's stuff and really saw how what he was sharing with the world was so in alignment with the stuff we've been teaching you guys for and covering with you guys for the last, we're going into 3 years now.
3 years now. Mm-hmm.
And so we think you're going to really enjoy the content. Before we get into that stuff, let's do some logistics. And while you're here, just go ahead and chime in to let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We are actually doing this interview earlier, so we're defying time right now. So we're doing this 3 hours earlier than we normally go live. Because we didn't feel that you guys would be willing to wake up 3 hours early to do the event, and so act as if it's live going on right now, and tell us in the comments. Ross and I will be responding and watching the comments as this goes. So please do that. Let us know where you're from, city, country, and just also hashtag first time if it's first time joining us, just so we know we can properly welcome you into our global community.
We have such a global reach, so definitely make sure you tell us what country you're from. So currently, I'm in Seattle. Gary's in near Vancouver, BC,
Yeah.
and Dr. Mary is in Singapore. So not only is our global reach with just all of our participants, we have spread ourselves out to where we are interviewing people across the globe. And I love technology. I really do. So again, Dr. Mary, thank you so very much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you here.
You're very welcome. I'm very glad to be here. I was going to call myself Dr. Phil, but then I saw somebody else took that, so I got to be Dr. Mary or Phil. Just Phil is fine.
There's some copyright issue there, yeah.
Some copyright issue there, but I think I'm older than he is, Gary. So maybe I got there first.
Yeah, there's probably there's something there.
Yeah.
So they used to call me Ross the boss, so that's there you go.
There you go. I'm just delighted to be here, and from reading about you guys are doing an incredible job with the people that you bring on and the things that you share to the world. So it's a great pleasure and an honor to be asked to join you. Thank you, Ross.
Awesome.
Thank you, Gary.
Our pleasure.
All right, well, let's jump right in. Synchronicity.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, my first question when the very first time that I heard you speak, um, I was just so unaware that somebody could actually have a PhD in synchronicity. That just blew my mind. And so, what brought you to this area of study?
It it brought me. I brought to this area, Ross, because synchronicities were happening to me. I think as a team and a leadership consultant, I just flow with whatever's happening to me and what's coming to me from my clients. Um, and so I got things happening that were thinking to myself, how did that happen? I wanted, for example, I wanted $15,000 to balance the books in my company here in Singapore about 10, 15 years ago. 10 minutes before 4, I noticed the time. 4 o'clock, the phone rings, and a colleague of mine from Amsterdam said, Philip, are you free next week to go to to Beijing to do a cross-cultural team seminar? I said, yes, I am. And then he said, the other thing is you'll be pleased because the fee is good. It's $15,000. And I kind of fell off my seat and thought, how the heck does that happen? I wanted $10,000, $15,000. 10 minutes later, it's delivered to me. And so many things like that began to happen to me, including, for example, I attracted John Denver, the country singer John Denver.
Yeah.
Country roads take me home. Well, I decided to get married based on a conference I attended with the songs of John Denver. And they moved me so much that it was time for me to ask my girlfriend the question. And I said to myself on the Friday evening when the conference finished, how do I say thank you to John Denver? Do I just write an email, John Denver, America, or whatever? Following morning, I opened the Singapore newspaper, John Denver in Singapore next week. I'm thinking, what? I want to say thank you to John Denver, and he's actually coming to Singapore next week.
Amazing.
I then had somebody say to me, I'm at the hotel where John Denver will be staying. If you send me a fax, I'll see if I can get it to him. She had the fax in her hand, she told me later. And she's thinking, how do I get this to John Denver? The elevator, the lift opened, there was John Denver. John Denver then wrote to me a message, great message, which I received on the Sunday. Friday evening, I want to say thank you to John Denver. Sunday evening, he calls me at home.
Wow.
So synchronicity is the birthright of all of us.
Yes.
Every single person in the world has things happen to them which are kind of unusual, which give them things which come out of the blue. And so because it happened to me so much, and the more I talk to leaders, now the interesting thing, Russ and Gary, the interesting thing for leaders is they said, yes, Philip, it happens to me all the time. Please don't tell my boss. Because there's something about, if you're a leader, you like your team to be successful because you're a good leader, right?
Yeah.
And you went to an MBA, and your MBA didn't teach you about synchronicity, but that's how you run your business.
Sure,
So
it's a little too woo-woo for people, right? It can seem that way if you don't understand.
That's exactly the word that people use is woo-woo.
Yeah.
And so people, although it happens to all of us, a lot of people keep it hidden as leaders, especially because they don't want it to be something that they are kind of known for, because it takes away from what their credibility is for them. So synchronicity, Ross, back to your original question. As I looked around my life, I began to see that synchronicities had happened to me all through my life. And so I said, if I've confirmed that for my leaders that I work with and teams I work with, it happens to them as well, and they don't understand it and don't know how to think about it or talk about it, I said, this is what I got to do. So at the grand old age of 60, I think I was, I said, got to do my PhD. And so found Tilburg University and basically went ahead very simply with gathering leaders from around the world as my field work and saying to them, synchronicity happens to you. Can you tell me what you think facilitates synchronicity? So that's basically my PhD. And then the 9 Keys of Synchronicity, which is my book, is a summary of what I found from this field research of the types of things that facilitate synchronicity. And I was so lucky to have David Cooper Ryder, who founded Appreciative Inquiry. He was my supervisor.
That's awesome.
And he really helped a great deal. So that's the potted history, Ross.
Well, let's ask the audience, and as everyone's watching, if you can comment in the chat and tell us, your experiences of what you consider to be synchronicity. And we'd love to hear your synchronicity experiences or stories. Just go ahead and drop them in the chat, in the comments, and all three of us will come back around and respond to it and touch base.
Exactly.
Because again, I think that you said that everyone's experiences. Yeah, I think so too. I think that synchronicity for me has been a long-term concept that I look into and explore and dive into for myself, as well as looking at it how it unfolds for others as well.
Sure.
Ross and I put together, based on our experiences, 9 different types of synchronicity, so that people can have something to pinpoint on a map, if you will, right? When synchronicity occurs, what it looks like, what it can sound like, some aspects, and obviously it's not all types of possible synchronicities. It's just 9 that we've kind of carved out, and I can't help but think, and through all my years of experience, and tell me if you feel this is the way you see it too, that everything is a product of synchronicity. Like, so I see it as going from a no thing to a something to an everything in the universe is based on synchronicity. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, Gary, this is such a synchronistic interview we're having here.
Of course.
Number one, you've got 9 types of synchronicity. I've got 9 keys of synchronicity.
Yeah.
But what you're describing, Gary, is, when that first synchronicity happened. So let's take my $15,000, right? If I'd never noticed a synchronicity before, and then suddenly $15,000 is handed to me when I say I want it, I could just say, "Wow, interesting coincidence," and then go on my way.
Yeah.
Right.
But I can say, "Wow, how the heck did that happen? I wonder if that's not just one event, but there may be others as well." Then I begin to watch out for other things in my life, and I begin to realize when another synchronicity happens, what if this is the way the universe is organized?
Right. Exactly.
What if in reality we have surrounding us this incredible kind of like GPS in the world that literally is what I call the universe has your back?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you either, I've forgotten who said it, but either you believe it fully or you kind of just say it's not much. And I've taken the road, and I call it in my book, living a life of synchronicity.
Nice.
Because
Very
if
nice.
it happens once, and we find that there's truth in this supportive, and obviously we could get into a great debate about, is it God, is it spirit, whatever else it is. I don't want to go there necessarily. But if there is a supportive energy in the universe, then it's not necessarily just for one event. It's there for all of our lives. So ever since I kind of, really got interested and did my PhD and wrote the book and everything, but my whole life now is a synchronicity, in the sense of, how do I use this intelligence to live my life in everything that I do?
Well, do you
That's
feel
awesome.
that identifying and acknowledging the synchronistic events each day, each moment, in such builds that muscle, that synchronicity muscle, so that we get out of we get out of the habit. It's like, oh, it's just a coincidence. Oh, it's just luck. Oh, it's oh, just look what happens. To
Well,
where
it's about believing, Ross, and I think belief does come in a little bit, although
oh, sure.
because synchronicity happens, then it's a thing.
Yeah.
We thought that synchronicity was dead when Newton came along and told us the universe is organized and we're all separate and all the rest of it. The one thing that he didn't cope with was the fact that the stories continued throughout history. All the great leaders in the world have had unusual events happen to them. So to me, it's about saying, if this is the way the universe is organized, I want to live that life. I want every day, with every problem that I face, every issue that I face, to look for the synchronistic answer. So here I am in my office in Singapore. When I have an issue that I want some answers to, and I'm puzzling over what to do, I stop and say to myself, there is an answer out there.
Nice.
And I literally go walk the streets. I go to the shopping mall next to me, looking for the messages that are going to be given to me. And sometimes they are big in the sense of, I decided to get married based on synchronicity.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are crazy little things that you see in an advert. I was thinking 20 years ago now, I want to move from my apartment that I bought to be able to rent out the apartment to get money, and then I could go and live in a smaller place and I get money. I couldn't decide. Shall I make the move? Shall I move? Shall I not move? Shall I move? Shall I not move? I was driving my car with this on my mind, stopped at a traffic lights about 50 yards from where I am now, stopped at the traffic lights with this on my mind, turned to my left. There was a van parked on my left with a big sign saying, make the move. Now, it was a furniture removal van, but at a very precise moment, I was saying, shall I move? Shall I not move? Shall I move? Shall I not move? A van parked, make the move.
Yeah.
So as we begin to understand that if this is true for one thing, it's true for everything, back to your point, Gary, yours is such a great point to make, that if this is true for one thing, then it's the way somehow the universe, the world is organized.
Yeah.
So you at one point have said that synchronicity is like the science behind the law of attraction.
Yeah, I mean, it's the law of attraction. Some people love it. Some people kind of think it's a bit too woo-woo, and it's all about fast cars, beautiful girls, and beautiful houses. But in reality, synchronicity is the law of attraction. The law of attraction says, whatever your vibration, and people don't like that word because they think it's a bit too woo-woo, Gary, like you say, but our energetic vibration, i.e., do we believe that answers can come to us? That's the law of attraction. So and in fact, interesting point, Ross, that you say that, because my PhD question, first of all, was to explore the law of attraction.
Oh, okay.
And because there wasn't much written about the law of attraction, my research led me to see that actually this was synchronicity. So I changed from researching the law of attraction to researching synchronicity because there was a lot more written about it. So yes, it is very similar or the same, Ross, as law of attraction as far as I'm concerned.
So do you feel that that synchronicity is, I've always called it the kind of like a cosmic language. It's something that it is the universe speaking to us, it's guiding us. And Gary and I have always said that, that synchronicity can guide you and tell you, yes, go forward, like make the move. Or if you'd stopped in front of that van and said, don't. And sometimes those, it works in both ways.
Yes, it does. I mean, there can often things come to you that actually block the way forward. Though, one thing and it's so nice, guys, to hear that you're studying this too. We're going to have lots more conversations, I hope, offline too.
We do definitely hope so.
You can't say definitively exactly what it's all about, because we're going to discover things scientifically over the next few years which actually give us deeper insights than we currently have. But what you can say is that there seems to be an energy that enables us to find answers to our most pressing questions, personal, big ones, small ones, whatever it might be. And so that's what I'm more interested in. I think we're beyond already any doubt that synchronicity happens, because there are far too many stories throughout history of synchronicity. What I want to do, and am doing, is now saying, how can we use this to solve some of our current issues in the world and in our personal lives? And in terms of the science behind it, I like quantum physics. in terms of quantum entanglement
Yeah.
begins to me to give us a sense of what the answers might be to synchronicity. Because as opposed to Newtonian physics, which said we're separate and the world is material, and there's empty space between people,
Yeah.
quantum physics tells us that we are energy.
Mhm.
And if we are
Right.
vibrational energy at the core of who we are, quantum entanglement says that when two things are separated, they actually are still connected. So I think that begins to tell us, to me, some of the science, potential answers about how synchronicity happens.
Mhm. And, you know, and so you, I think my greatest fascination is the fact that you teach these philosophies to companies and organizations. And I think it's fantastic that these organizations and these companies are reaching out saying, you know, we need this. But at the same time, earlier in our discussion, it's like a lot of them are like, no, I use it, but I don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Well, so that's the fascinating thing, Ross, isn't it?
Yeah.
That in terms of the work that all three of us do,
Mm-hmm.
you see, what I believe is I don't teach anybody anything. What I hope I've done with my 9 keys of synchronicity
Mm-hmm.
is give a language that helps people understand what they already know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think any
Love it.
idea, any concept that people bring, if you say to people, okay, sit down and listen to me, I'm going to teach you, you can't, to me, that's an uphill battle. I begin with saying, has anything ever happened to you out of the blue which provided exactly what it was that you needed? Everybody says yes. I'll then say, I've begun to explore some mechanisms why that might happen. So if you approach anything that you teach from the perspective of the people that you are talking to already know the experience, all that we're doing is giving a language structure to help them understand their experience. And
Yeah.
I say this because so often organizations, when I'm teaching individuals, they'll come to me and say, oh my God, that's why when I was 27, more to your point here, a guy came to me, big oil company, he worked for a big oil company, and said, when I was 27, I was in a part of the world that I wanted to stay, and I wanted the CEO job in that country. I didn't get it, but I was sent to America and Europe, and 20 years later, I came back to that country, and now I know why I didn't get it when I was 27, because I wasn't ready for it.
Sure.
So he said that the world stepped in and said, no, you're not getting that country. And he came back 20 years later and he says, now I know why I had to wait 20 years, because at the age of 27, I wasn't ready.
But at 27, you had to have that experience to open up the portal for that potential to show up later.
Absolutely. I love
right?
Gary, I
Yeah.
love
So
the words you use, Gary, around this, the portal. Yeah, I like that.
yeah, well, our 9 types that we call it 9 sync portals, right? So they're
Okay.
gateways to alternate realities, right?
Okay.
And so yeah, a lot of what you, I mean, so much of what you say is an alignment, because even with the showing them the language they already know thing, we do a similar thing with, when we teach and when we talk to and share our content on Thursdays. The way our label of our regular stream is called Hacking the Infinity Matrix.
Wow.
And what we're doing is we're showing people that and explaining to them how there's already an existing code for the matrix of reality, externally and internally, and then we're just kind of exposing it, and then in the exposing of it, we then give them tools to also then be in control of it, so they have more choice, more option, and more of the life they want to have, right?
And have you you've written all this down, right, Gary? There's books about this.
Yes.
We're in the process of writing a book. Yes.
I love to read this book. I mean, I love what you're saying. So, I mean, isn't it interesting though that you've got 9 and I've got 9?
Yeah.
It is.
I wonder what connection there is
Fascinating.
between it.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of what brought us, with you, because I hadn't even, again, this is, I haven't gotten your book yet, but I definitely have looked at some of your content. But that was after we had our 9 Sync. It wasn't as a
Wow.
result
Oh,
of.
no, you're right. So this is a synchronicity already, and,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
and it's back to, and it's fascinating, guys. I mean, I love it that you're in this area. But as you've said already, some people will say, Gary, this is woo woo,
Yeah.
and actually will,
Mhm.
just like they say, don't talk politics, don't talk religion, don't talk sex. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
This has that uh, type of thing to it. So it's kind of something I feel like I've been given the role of a freedom fighter
Yeah.
to help
Mhm.
people make sense of what they know already happens to them and give a language around it that
Hmm.
actually explains it. So, Ross, companies don't all come beating at my door saying, tell me about synchronicity. What I'm doing is that when I do my normal leadership and team stuff, I will
Mhm.
begin to introduce it to them in that context
Right.
and say, how do you want to be more successful by using your heart and your head,
Nice.
or your heart and your brain?
Nice.
Because when you're in heart brain coherence, that's my number 6
Yeah.
key, setting intention with your
Mhm.
heart and your brain
Right.
working together,
Mhm.
then you can attract more to you. And I do a lot of work with the HeartMath Institute. I don't know if you know
Yep. We're
them.
very familiar
Yep.
with them.
So
Yes.
I'm a certified HeartMath facilitator. HeartMath is the leader in the world around
Yes, they
heart
are.
coherence, and I love the work they do
Mhm.
there. So when I begin to give them language that isn't woo woo, and Gary, you're so right. Some people are going to say, "This is magic. This is witchcraft. I don't want anything to do with it." You're
Yeah.
never going to
Right.
win those people over.
Yeah.
But you're going to win over the people that know that there is a truth to their own spiritual intuition. And I use the word spiritual,
Love it.
although some people would call it something else.
Yeah.
They know these things happen to them. So, what I want to do with my 9 keys is help them look, here's a way of looking at it and enabling it to happen. Individually, got no problem with that because a lot of people want to know about it. The work I do in corporations, Ross, obviously, it's sometimes I've got to be careful with my language so they don't run away because it's
Yeah.
too woo woo. But
Mhm.
as I introduce it, I'm finding that there's an open door. I mean, like, for example, what you say to people who are skeptical. So I understand you're skeptical. Tell me some of the words you use in your organization. So, for example, do you use the word team spirit? And everybody says, yeah, of course we do. I said, tell me what you mean by team. No problem. And then I'll say, so what do you mean by spirit?
Yeah.
Ah,
And
yes.
they'll say, oh, I say, see, you're already using the terminology,
Hmm.
which is more than just the practical, rational, logical stuff.
Absolutely.
You're using the
Mhm.
word spirit, and who doesn't use the word leadership spirit, team spirit, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
every day in their organization? So what I'm trying to do, and I was given this synchronistically, which is the freedom fighter stuff. I feel that the next period of my life, and I'm 73 this year, I still feel I'm 16 years old inside. Um,
Good for you.
the
Keep
next
it up.
period of my life, the next period of my life is all about helping people get free of the notions that the spiritual, emotional, intuitive side of themselves is nonsense. And
Yeah.
I am trying to get them to integrate their logic and their spirit to tap into the power of synchronicity.
Mhm.
Well,
Do
we
you have
definitely see, we definitely see that more and more people are waking up to that type of
right?
mentality, attitude, and belief system in the work we do, which is awesome.
Yeah. Uh, Philip, do you have a theory on why or how people have lost that?
Yeah, very simple. Newton, Isaac Newton. Up until Isaac Newton,
Yeah.
and I talk about this in the book. I've got a whole chapter. Basically, my book outlines my own life and the things that happened to me that led me down here. It then describes my PhD research and then describes the 9 keys.
Great.
Hmm.
And then I have a chapter called The Science of Synchronicity. and the emerging science of synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
So all of it, I mean, I'm making big generalizations here, guys, so knock me down,
It's
if I
okay.
don't make sense.
Sure.
All of us in ancient times had a sense of connection with the divine. And we know that through all the artifacts that you see, and the statues and the temples and the religious artifacts. And so we had a sense of connection with nature. You know, when people wanted answers to questions, you know, 1,000 years ago, they looked at the weather, they looked at the sky, they looked at all sorts of stuff they looked at, and they sensed a connection, natural connection with the natural world. Newton came along, and Newton was fantastic. Isaac Newton was fantastic. Basically came along and said, logic, rational thinking is what makes the world turn around. All this spiritual, religious stuff, it's nice, comforting things to have, but it's not the reality of how the world works. And so we developed 400 years ago this notion that we are separate as human beings, that everything is ruled by logic, by rationality. The only problem was that the stories of synchronicity didn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
But Newton was so powerful that all of our educational concepts, law, economics, psychology, are all driven by the Newtonian paradigm.
Yep.
Which is logic,
Right.
which is rationale. What
Yeah.
we're now living through is this fantastic, you know, age in which we live, that's rediscovering our connection with the earth and with the environment, in terms of that takes us beyond just logic and rationality. And to me, the biggest description of that, explanation of that, is quantum physics, which 100 years ago told us we are connected. But we're only still just beginning to wake up to that, on what it
Well, we're getting out of the industrial age that Newton kind of
Exactly.
sparked up, right? We're getting to a place, and I think even some of the recent world events of people, you know, going away from the office and now getting to a place where they don't have to be in these boxes and containers. They can be in more of their natural environment and still thrive from that place, right?
Yeah, I think that's very true, Gary, because the other thing that was happening, you see, is that the ideas of spirituality, synchronicity, intuition, quantum physics are now being talked about, so that people can understand. Because when Newton and logic ruled, and it still does, people kept quiet all these other things that were more intuitive. Now that they're being, which is why I think that ideas, and I'm so grateful to you guys for connecting with me, because the more you share with your audiences that this stuff is not woo-woo, as Gary says, it's real, and it's science, and it's emerging science, the more we're free to talk about it. And as we become free to talk about it, then we are more free to be able to actually recognize the power of looking at head and heart. And I'm very, very strong on saying your brain and your heart together. Those people who say just listen to the heart, sorry, that doesn't do it for me. We've got a brain, we've got a heart for a reason. Sometimes don't follow your heart, because your brain says if you try and cross this road without looking right or left, you're going to get killed. So use your head, but sometimes use your heart. So we're in this incredible period, I think, in human life, where we are discovering the power of the heart and the brain working together.
So
and
in your research, what did you come across as far as Carl Jung?
He's the heart of everything that is in my PhD.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the history of synchronicity, Carl Jung was the first person that actually used the word synchronicity.
Right.
And it basically means together in time. So Carl Jung is the granddaddy of everything to do with synchronicity. But obviously, he looked back in history and found that the concepts that he, talked about and discovered and encouraged were there. So Carl Jung is central, Ross, in terms.
Well, he was also the one who connected it with quantum physics as well.
He began to that. Well, his colleague, I've forgotten his name now.
Starts with a B. I'm trying to remember it too. He was a physicist. It was one of
Yes,
his. It was
he was
one
a
of
big
his.
quantum
Actually,
physicist.
I think one of his patients. He was doing dream research with him.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. What's his name?
And
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah,
yes,
no. So he and Carl Jung were the two together that grew and developed the whole notion of the connection of synchronicity with quantum
mhm,
physics.
yeah.
And he was a guy who, and there's actually a syndrome named after him, because whenever this guy, who we can't remember his name, walked into a laboratory, his physical presence would set off mechanisms and would break machinery simply because the energy of his physical presence was
Hmm.
was there and was strong.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
I mean, so Carl Jung is central, um, and Carl Jung, brought in the I Ching as well,
Yeah.
and all sorts of other things that was
mhm,
central to all of this. And so what I think we're seeing in terms of synchronicity is a whole growth and development of different ideas around synchronicity, which is why HeartMath is so important. Dr. Joe
absolutely.
Dispenza, I don't know if you know Joe Dispenza, but
Oh,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much. Yes.
Yeah.
so I'm a certified Joe Dispenza trainer as well, and his work is so important. And so what I like is that the stories are there, obviously, but as Gary rightly said, that's open to people saying it's woo woo. So
Yeah.
what's
Hmm.
happening is that people are now talking and writing and researching about synchronicity in a way that helps us really get it into people's mind as something that wasn't just crazy or silly, but
Yeah.
something now that is the latest emerging science.
So what I found is that ultimately synchronicity itself is a neutral experience, and the variable that determines whether that it is meaningful or not, or to be paid attention to or ignored, is the individual's consciousness. The term meaningful and coincident to me are both, because I'm heavy into words and
Yeah,
the
yeah, I can
impact they
tell
have,
that.
right?
Gary,
To me,
what do
they're
we?
both so ambiguous and subjective that I think it's kind of, I have a hard time holding on to agreeing that that's the standard that we all adhere to for synchronicity, right?
What do you mean by it's a neutral experience, Gary? I'm interested in that. What does that
So
mean?
so okay, something may have inherent meaning to me because because my past, right? While the same
Right.
thing to another person could trigger a traumatic episode, and then another person has zero attachment to it. So who's right in that scenario? It's neutral, right? It's what we put into it from a consciousness point that makes it one way or the other.
I guess I responded to the word neutral because neutral is the last thing that I feel when a synchronicity happens to me.
I agree, because
I,
we feed into we at that point. So from that place of all potential choices of being good, bad, indifferent, or anything in between, right? Synchronicities just happen. They are not they're not coming in with the intent of being positive or the intent of being negative. That comes from us. Do you see it that way?
Obviously, you can see I'm kind of not fully responding
Yeah.
because one of my keys is celebrate with awe, or
Yeah.
celebrate the awe. So when a
Mhm.
synchronicity happens, so for example, to use my John Denver story, when I woke up on Saturday morning after saying on Friday night I want to see John Denver, and
Yeah.
saw that John Denver was going to be in Singapore, that wasn't neutral to me. I felt awesome nature of somehow being provided with that. But I take your point if you're saying that what may be a synchronicity to one person may not be for another, so there is a neutrality about it. I can
Yeah.
take your point now, Gary, but when it actually happens to you, what I think we often miss is this sense of celebrating what an incredible world that we're living in. I'm
Oh, yeah.
celebrating right now. What an incredible,
Yeah.
precious experience to talk to the two of you. And to me, this is a synchronicity because you contacted me. And
Yeah.
now I see that you got 9 types of synchronicity. I've got 9 keys. So
And we're all
the
wearing red.
and we're all,
Yeah.
so Gary, I think you're absolutely right. there is a neutrality in the sense of it appears differently to different people. I can take that. I can understand that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the way I was going with it. Is that it is the
then I accept that. But in
yeah, you know, then our consciousness that we bring to the table is what determines whether, because some people also take, you know, a what would seem like a positive experience and turn it to a negative side because of what they bring to the table, right? And you know, but inherently the experience is the experience. Synchronicity happens all the time. I 100% agree with that. I think it happens way more than people talk about or even are willing to admit. Even those of us that are in the realm of it, where, you know, I mean, my head goes down right to the molecular components of how just synchronistically one cell has to synchronistically work with another in order for us to exist.
Yeah. But I guess you can still, you and I need to talk a little bit more. I think I get what you say, because I think there is that sense of it appears differently. But if you take, you see, synchronicity to be quantum energy, and that we are quantumly entangled, then of course it will be different from me than it is for you. Because the other thing I think that synchronicity does is actually help you really begin to live the life that you are meant to lead.
Yes.
So what a lot of people in my research said was they felt that synchronicity came along when they were at crossroads in terms of, should I do this or should I do this? And then an event happened that enabled them to go in a particular way.
So can I just interject here, Philip? So in that scenario, though, right? Isn't it that synchronicity was happening anyways? But it's that at that point that person put some meaning into it, then it had meaning. But it was happening anyways.
No, it wasn't happening, Gary, because it's related to that particular individual. And it needs the energy of that individual in order for that to manifest. So when you become a vibrating energetic core, which we all are, and you have this in your mind that, you know, I want to do some work in Iran with the problems that they're having in Iran at the moment. And you begin to actually experience that and feel that this desire, as you see the issues that people have in Iran, want to be able to do more work, or it might be women's empowerment in general, or the climate, or whatever it might be. That's your particular vibration. So synchronicity doesn't exist separate from your vibration. You attract it to you because of your own personal vibration. So in that sense, I don't think it's so neutral.
Got it.
So, but don't you think that when, like, let's use your John Denver analogy, is that so you had a series of events, and then you had you didn't actually put it out there consciously that you wanted to meet John Denver, correct? You wished it.
I did.
You did.
So think about this. I'd been Monday to Friday in this powerful personal development seminar where the music of John Denver moved me to tears and filled my whole being, enabling me to say, this is the woman I want to ask to marry me.
Got it.
On the Friday evening, I very specifically said, I want to say thank you to John Denver.
Okay.
Friday evening.
So then the events transpired that made that happen and such because you were more open to it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Now you're
because if I'm in the room right beside you, Philip, and those songs, and I'm not getting that, the synchronicity is still going on, but because it doesn't have meaning to me, I don't put meaning into it.
Well, when you say the synchronicity is still going on, the synchronicity is personal to me. It's not something that exists, except, Gary, you can say that the world is an energetic vibration. Quantum energy is an energetic vibration. All of us are not physical matter. At the heart of every one of us is empty space, almost vibrating. So because I'm saying, I want to say thank you to John Denver, and because this is a situation where I'm deciding on my life partner, and clearly that's
comes
the
together.
path that's the path that I should be
Right.
going down. It all came together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And by the way, on the Monday, I did go and ask her to marry me, and she did say yes.
Nice.
And she's next
We're
door
glad
watching
to
me.
hear it, because that was a lot of work for.
John worked hard for that.
Did you preface asking her with that story? Okay, now this is what happened on Friday. This is what happened on Saturday. This is what happened here. You have to marry me now.
No. Unfortunately, you need courage for us to be able to do it. And no, I didn't tell her all that. I told her later,
Oh, that's
and
hilarious.
obviously now she's seen in the book, so she knows it. But it's a very interesting point, Gary, though, that you're raising is that when you say synchronicity exists, to me, what I take that to mean is the energy of quantum entanglement and connection is the energy of the universe.
Yes,
exactly.
correct.
So when we individually tap into it, then we are on a path that takes us on our particular journey.
Then you're opening up what we call sync portals, right? And that's our 9 sync portal types, right? Yeah, exactly.
I love to hear more about your sync portal types. So when's the book coming out, Gary?
Coming out next year, guaranteed.
Okay, I can't wait to read that.
So let's talk about your 9 keys.
Okay.
Because we've been kind of dropping the hints about that, but let's talk about what are the 9 keys of synchronicity.
Ross, would you like to see them?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, Gary will switch that over for you. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, it's way up at the top here. Oh, by the way, there she is.
There you go. Oh, nice. Oh, she's beautiful.
That's my John Denver story. That's my John Denver story.
Awesome.
It's such a nice thing talking to you guys. It's so cool to have somebody.
Yeah, I think synchronicity, and I think the reason so many people, because it's one of our biggest topics on our page, and exactly. I think that the reason is because it's so vast in its depth of what we can explore. To me, it's like trying to verify time and space. It's like you get to this place where
I think that's true. I think that's
people know about it and they want to quantify it, and that's why they are looking for the information. It's like, no, this happens to me. I want to hear what everybody else is going through. How can I make it better?
That's why, Ross, I took the very pragmatic approach. There's a lot of people say synchronicity about. Let me tell my story. What I was interested in, how do we make this work for us? And so this is my model. This comes from, don't forget, interviewing people who have had experience of synchronicity and answering the question from me, what facilitates synchronicity? And so this grew out of 200 pages of data, which I summarized like this. And I put them into 3, you can see this already, right? And my cursor.
Yes.
Okay, so there are 3 sets of 3. I began with the practicality of finding synchronicity in the day-to-day. So number 1, be curious about out-of-the-blue events. When something happens in your life, which is not the normal run-of-the-mill thing that's happening, it could be you find that the bus goes a different way to work, or you sit in a different place on the train, or whatever it might be. Be curious about the out-of-the-blue events.
Yeah.
Because when something unusual happens, behind it may be a synchronicity. So when it happens, then you connect the dots. So again, let's just stay with John Denver. My situation with John Denver, I wanted to meet him. He turned up in my life the following day. The dots in my life were I was deciding about getting married. And that's key number 2. So link the synchronicity to the big picture of your life. And then key number 3, act on the intuition. So this seems like I got to ask this woman to marry me because she's the one for me. And notice I talk about act on the intuition. Don't just have the intuition, you've got to act on it. And by the way, these are all chapters in the book, and there are all sorts of exercises that go along with that. So that's the discovery. Then comes the point, guys, that we've already talked about, which is, okay, that was interesting, so what? And you could just go on your merry way and not do anything. But then you begin to say, wow, that was amazing. How did that happen? Key number 4, celebrate awe. And there's some research in the book that says what happens when you feel a sense of awesomeness or awe, it opens a lot more portals, Gary, in your terminology.
Yeah.
Key number 5, be a servant citizen. The people I interviewed in the research said synchronicity seemed to happen a lot more when you involved in something which was about serving the world. And so to me, that's about something that says when we are compassionate and caring and serving each other, somehow synchronicity comes along and says, I'll help you along with that one. Key number 6, and these are the integration keys, set intention with heart and brain coherence. With your brain, say very clearly what it is that you want. So when I'm working with teams, Ross, this is very powerful for teams, because when I get everybody on the team saying they want exactly the same thing, and then with their heart, I have a whole exercise where with their heart, they actually feel it to happen, then the body is in coherence, more likely to open up various portals. So those are the integration. And then I left the green keys or the mindsets till the end. Key number 7 is you cannot attract synchronicity to you unless you have a sense of living with hope and possibility. Human beings often live in survival mode.
Yeah.
And Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in survival mode, which says, you know, I'd love for great things to happen to me, but I've not been very lucky in my life and I've never been very successful, and I'd love for good things to happen, but I don't think they will because I don't think I'm the sort of person who can attract them. Once you go down that road, you block synchronicity. So this is about every day waking up with this sense of this is a hopeful world of possibility. Key number 8, merge with the present moment. In the here and now, it's like imagining, guys, that if we believe in quantum energy, no need to believe or not believe, it's the reality of how the world exists, according to most physicists. It's as if in the present moment, you are reaching out to the quantum energy and being open to the present moment to deliver to you what it is that you want.
Yeah.
So I help people to go silent. And then finally, this was a tough one, Ross and Gary, because connect with source could be simply expressed if you are a religious person, connect with God, pray to God. But obviously, not everybody in the world has a faith. And so I wanted to be very clear not to put people off that you've got to be religious to have synchronicity to happen to you. So all I've said is, do you believe that somehow there is a source outside of yourself that exists? You don't have to describe it or understand it fully, but somehow there is more to this world than what we actually accept. So somehow connect with that source. So each of these has a chapter in the book. They have exercises in the book. And when I'm doing coaching, like I'm coaching somebody at the moment who says, I need synchronicity coaching, and I came to you because you're a synchronicity coach, then I will take him through these 9 keys and say, which are you doing well and where are you missing out? And this guy said to me, I'm intending to have the best job get to me in my particular field because I'm experienced and I'm very, very good. That's my intention. I said, where do you think you are falling down? He said, I'm not a very optimistic person. I think I don't have hope and possibility because as a young kid, my dad told me I would never amount to very much. And although I've tried like crazy to live a successful life, my dad's message to me somehow still lives in my brain. So unless I can begin to work on that. So what I'm doing is in my teamwork and in my coaching, really just helping people understand how they can press any one of these keys to open synchronicity up a little bit more. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
And I'm the first person, and I don't say this with any sense of ego, But what I wanted to do was to give something practical that people can use. Now, maybe 10 years' time, this will all be proven to be crazy. But what it is, because it's PhD research, it comes from grounded theory research, which is you build a model based on what people say to you.
Right.
And so I can go back to that and say, look, this is 200 pages of data, which in summary turns out to be 9 keys.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
So how can people get access to your book? You want to share that? How they can
PhilipMerry.com.
get contact with you?
Yeah, www.philipmerry.com. That's my website. And you'll see there's something called the 9 Keys of Synchronicity. And you've got parts of the book which are downloadable. You've got reviews of the book. You've got a whole variety of other things. And listen, I am at philipmerry.com, phil@philipmerry.com, one L in Philip. I'm happy for people to write to me with synchronicity stories. And the most amazing thing, just before we were here, I was contacting somebody I hadn't seen for 10 years who saw one of my podcasts and I'm having amazing conversations with people from all over the world.
Awesome.
There's nothing better for an author when you've written something that you think, you tried your best, and then strangers come to you and say, wow, I've just read your book and I'm finding it very useful because it's helping me with this, it's helping me with this. There's nothing more satisfying than feeling that somehow your ideas and your thoughts are being of help for other people's lives around the world.
Well, that it actually leads to my last question. I think it's perfect. Synchronicity is that. Let's close this with, what is the most incredible story that you've either experienced or somebody has shared with you when it comes to synchronicity? Obviously, marrying your bride is the number one. How about number 2?
Well, listen, I've got so many, but one that I have that really was incredible, that helped me with actually, maybe I'll give you 2 quick ones, Ross. But
sure, we have time. We have plenty of time.
I was meeting my financial advisor in the middle of Singapore. I was chatting to him and I said 2 things. Number 1, last week was my 66th birthday. Just out of the blue, I just said that to him. The second thing I said to him was, last night I had this crazy dream that I was a freedom fighter. That's all I said. 66th birthday, and last night I dreamt I was a freedom fighter. At that precise moment, I turned to my left, and there was a guy walking past me. There was a guy walking past me with a T-shirt that said 66 Freedom Fighter.
That's wild.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
That's pretty wild.
In the introduction to my financial advisor, just chattered.
Yeah.
And said, last week was my 66th birthday, and freedom fighter. I had a dream about being a freedom fighter. This guy precisely just walked straight past me. I ran after him. I didn't interrupt him, but I took a picture of his T-shirt because I knew nobody would ever believe me.
Yeah.
In terms of
that's something else.
meant. So that helped me. 66 was meaningful because I just submitted my dissertation, and my dissertation was successful. So 6 and 6 in Chinese, and a lot of Chinese people live in Singapore, means luck.
Nice.
So it said that my dissertation was going to be successful. And then freedom fighter really only came to me later, as I realized that, as I said to you earlier, what I'm about is a freedom fighter, being a freedom fighter for helping people understand this.
Pretty cool.
Then the last one, which is the most, still touches me like crazy and tells something about the vast eternity of synchronicity. I used to appear on Singapore morning TV called Views on the News, where they would take people like me, and in the morning they give me stories at 6 o'clock in the morning to read, and then at 7 o'clock I'd appear on the news and give my view. Like, who's the biggest threat to world peace, Putin or Obama? Those types of questions. So I like to do that because on my feet. So there I was, 5 o'clock one morning, getting ready to go and appear on the news. I looked down at my mobile,
Mm-hmm.
and it said on the mobile, message from your dad. Now, why is this unusual? Because my dad had passed on a year before.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so this was a message from a professional psychic friend of mine in
Interesting.
the US. And she said, Phil, your dad's been trying to get hold of you,
Wow.
leaving messages with me. Here is the message that he left you. And my dad has a message saying, hi, son, I'm doing well. I do a lot of dancing where I am, blah, blah, blah. Then he said, I'm so proud of the work you're doing on the television box. You'll be doing more of this. Now, my dad's generation
Wow.
used the word television box
Yeah.
because it was a box. We never used that. So
Sure.
that told me it was an authentic message.
Hmm.
And I was just about to appear on TV. And yes, I have done a lot more of TV work since then.
Mhm.
So imagine the enormity of this. And this is why I like to finish with this story sometimes. Imagine the enormity of this, Gary and Ross. Somewhere, somehow, my dad, who'd been dead for a year,
Mhm.
knew what I was doing,
Yeah.
and knew that this message would get to me
Yeah.
2 hours before I appeared on the TV. So it gave me that sense of, and this is a message for all your listeners, we all grieve when loved ones pass on.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
have this message that says to me, they haven't passed on. They have, but they haven't, because somehow,
Yeah.
somewhere, they know you and they see you and they can connect with you.
Yeah, that's what we call an interdimensional sync portal. It's when something so bizarre happens that you don't have any logical explanation for how or why it happened. It tends to be in the paranormal type event type scenarios.
Well, it's interesting though, Gary. All of synchronicity is in the paranormal, because that's the actual terminology now for synchronicity. Where it sits is parapsychology.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
when you read my book, The Emergent Science of Synchronicity, that's the school in which synchronicity sits. And that's what we're going to be doing a lot more of, helping people understand parapsychology.
Oh, cool.
Does that make sense, Ross? Those are my last 2 stories.
That does. What a great way to end the show. And you heard it from the master, everyone. So philipmary.com. Pick up the book. Is this available like on Amazon and some of your other?
Yeah. If people go to my www.philipmary.com, all the Amazon connections are in my landing page for the 9 keys of synchronicity. So
there you go. So more bang for your buck.
If someone wants to reach out to you for working with the organizations, just your email is good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Please come. I love to work with people.
That is,
and I got to say big thank you to the 2 of you. What a blessing to have you 2 appear in my life at this moment. And we kind of didn't know each other 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? And I just really enjoyed talking to you. What a great style the 2 of you have to have open conversation.
Well, we definitely want to continue this relationship as well. And so we'll be reaching out to you again and again. And if you have events or maybe another book in the pipeline, always contact us first, and we will definitely get you back on the show. I can tell you the last live stream, which was that last week?
A couple
weeks ago. I mean, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of people were on it and watching the replays.
Well, the thing is, Ross, I'm doing master classes. So for the book, you'll see in the website that you go to, I'm doing online master classes, face-to-face as well, but online master classes for people who want to dive deeper into really understanding how to access synchronicity.
And are those live master classes?
Yep. You'll have me just talking like we talked here, but going through the stuff and obviously all the stuff that goes along with a normal class. I mean, I've been teaching for 43 years, so I know how to engage people on these types of issues, but also how to do it practically. You know,
Yeah, we're all into that too, for sure.
a lot of my colleagues do this stuff, but it tends to be goes out in the outer realms. I'm a practical guy. What is synchronicity going to do for me in my life is where I'm at.
Exactly. That's exactly how we do all of our work. It's very practical. Here, take this home, do this, doing this, do it like, and then come back and check in with us. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, cool.
So, fantastic. We love it. There is so much that we all have in common. I love it.
Really enjoyed it, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me, and blessings and love to all your
pleasure
and listeners.
Pleasure. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So for everyone here, just remember that we ask you to we dare you to be exceptional, and the only way to do that is implement what you learn and learn from what you implement, and come back and share with us in the chat, in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys all, how you enjoyed this interview and the nuggets that you got from it. Thanks, everyone. Be well.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Well, you made it to the end of this interview, and that tells us one thing. You liked what you heard, and maybe, just maybe, you might want more of the same. So be sure to hit subscribe and ring that bell. As a matter of fact, you might be ready to step things up for yourself. You see, everyone that you've heard us interview for the Infinite Wisdom series all have one thing in common. They've harnessed their own potential, claimed their badass self, and raised their game and leveled up. Whether it be in business, personal, romantic, for whatever aspect of life you choose, there's always a next level. So we encourage you to rekindle your passion and purpose, step it up, and register for our next free 5-day Badass Challenge. The link is below, and we are excited to see you take a leap into a new reality that only you can imagine.